Welcome to Business Connection. I'm Liz Spencer. We have wonderful guests in studio. It's Kent Christensen. He's a doctor of chiropractic and a functional medicine practitioner. He is joined by Mary Francis, who's a professional coach, and they're all from Holistic Chiropractic and Healing Arts Center. Thank you both for coming. We're talking about an important subject today.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Now, let's start a little bit. We're talking about our diet and what we put into our bodies and some of the breaking science, and we're here to talk about gluten. So let's start with, what is gluten?
So gluten is a main protein found in the wheat, as well as rye and some of the other barley grains that we commonly associate to health foods. And unfortunately, in 2018, the science is very clear. What has commonly been a health food for centuries is no longer a health food. It's an undigestible product that drives up inflammation and also has a very negative effect on our genetic expression. And if over time you're exposed to this, you can develop basically this chronic inflammation will cause intestinal permeability and autoimmune conditions, anything from lupus to rheumatoid arthritis to Parkinson's to Crohn's disease, Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And so what we are going to really talk about is why you're going to give up gluten for the rest of your life and have a healthier life because of it.
Right. Well, because most of us associate gluten with, grains, and we all want our whole grains, but that is no longer the best thing to do. Mary, tell me a little bit about your story. This kind of starts us a little bit on the two of yours path.
Sure. So I've been gluten-free for 17 years.
Wow.
Long before it was, popular or anybody even understood what it was. But I was willing to try it because of some health issues, and then found I felt better without it. Then to be tested in any way for celiac was too late. I'd have to go back and eat wheat again, and I wasn't willing to do that. So we skipped all of that testing. So I was gluten-free for years and years, but still had an episode where I really struggled with being sick and couldn't get out of bed, had no energy, and eventually found that it was the skin products that I was using that had wheat in them. So essentially they had gluten in them as well. And just simply, new hand lotion, new shampoo, conditioner, all those things, eliminating them helped me get back on track.
Now, Kent, this really helped shape your practice, because you're a chiropractor, and oftentimes we have a very stereotypical view of what a chiropractor is, that you're going to really just crack my back out, my neck is stiff. But here you're looking at the whole body, and you're really looking at what's inside of me. It's not just my skeletal system.
It's true. I've been in practice over 2 decades, and when I got out, I was treating a lot of athletes. I was an athlete growing up and playing college football and wrestling, and so I wanted to address an athletic population. But when Mary and I got married and we recognized that wheat had been such a profound negative influence on our health, leading to a diagnosis of Hashimoto's thyroiditis, it informed the way I practice, and I began studying functional medicine. And what we learn in functional medicine takes the idea of the brain controlling the function of every cell, tissue, and organ in the body, which is what a chiropractor wants to restore normal communication to, and understand, hey, something else might be that trauma. And that trauma in functional medicine is often either a heavy metal or a toxin, but it can also be the food we eat. And in fact, that is the largest toxic load that most of us are guilty of succumbing to, and that would be the sugar, the dairy, and today we're talking about wheat and gluten.
Wow. So let's talk a little bit about our diet. So you're advocating that we all should be gluten-free.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So talk to me a little bit about what damage is done with gluten and why this is so important.
If you get a diagnosis of celiac, you will definitely be shown to have eroded the microvilli of the gastrointestinal tract. Those are the little finger-like projections in the small intestine that do the job of absorbing broken down or digested food and bring it into the bloodstream to transport out to the tissues for healing, growth, repair, energy production. Because gluten in a celiac is so toxic, it actually erodes those microvilli. And so you go from a shag carpet, which is really healthy, down to a Berber carpet, and you have malabsorption syndromes. This is a very big problem. We know that science has shown that you have a 6-time increase of mortality if you are going undiagnosed with celiac disease. You're going to die 6 times sooner. Okay?
Frightening.
Now what we know is that non-celiac wheat sensitivity, which is I've commonly called non-celiac gluten sensitivity, but there are other peptides besides gluten in wheat that can cause sensitivity. And that doesn't erode the gut, but it does increase the inflammation. And so we get something called intestinal permeability, also commonly called leaky gut. And so now many of the foods that are not digested are inappropriately, they're failed to have been digested, are moving across into the bloodstream, and the immune system is called in to do the digestion. And over time, usually years and decades, this will cause tissue destruction. This is not acceptable. This is why people are failing to get results from their primary care physicians, because they're in that spectrum, if you will, between stimulus, eating a food that they can't digest, and tissue destruction when they have a full-blown title that we call a diagnosis. Well, if we can stop it back here, they don't get to this place of no return, or the difficulties of return from this over the waterfall, if you will, of disease.
Well, and this really, I think, speaks to what you do, that oftentimes, you're looking at the whole person, and oftentimes we go to our doctor, our regular physician, and say, I'm feeling fatigued, or my stomach always hurts, and they do all the testing, and they come back, and because we don't fit into the box, they kind of give us a little bit of, maybe it's a prescription, or say, don't eat these things, and drink more milk or whatever, coat the stomach, and it's just like, and then we don't know what to do. And that's where I think your practice in particular helps us, because you can do so much more in the testing realm than they can. So talk to me a little bit about
Absolutely. There's so I brought this book by Tom O'Brien. This is called The Autoimmune Fix. And if you have any question about what you're suffering from, I encourage you to pick up this book, $16 at Barnes & Nobles or wherever your favorite bookstore is. And he will step you through the entire science of autoimmunity. And what we know very succinctly, all right, I want to tell you a story. Dr. Arbuckle, who was published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2003, had 130 veterans. Okay, she was working through the Veterans Administration, 130 service members who had been diagnosed with lupus erythematosus. And the benefit of the Veterans Administration is they've been storing blood since 1978. So what they did is, once they had the diagnosis, that means they had enough tissue destruction of this joint and organ and skin disease. They went back and they looked, and they found the antibody titers were all elevated over 5 years previous to the actual diagnosis. In other words, they had autoimmune disorders already in their blood work, but they didn't have the symptoms. And so people today who have vague symptoms, I'm fat, I'm gaining a few pounds, I can't lose weight as easy, I'm a little gassy, I'm bloated, I get headaches, that's common, but it's not normal. We now have predictive blood work, like this wheat zoomer, that's actually half as expensive as the normal $1,200 to $1,500 food allergy test that I used to use, that we can diagnose and discern whether or not you have leaky gut, intestinal permeability. We can do food allergy testing and determine if you have this major food sensitivity, inability to digest these proteins, and the peptides that break it down, not just raw and cooked foods, but really the breakdown peptides. So if dairy or corn or wheat is the problem, we can get to the bottom of that.
Well, I think that's so fascinating. Mary, you said something to me I thought was really interesting, that off camera, that you said that sometimes people go to the doctor and then they get online.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about that.
Sure. So when traditional routes of seeking help don't work, this is where people tend to go now, is they look online, and that's sort of, I think, where gluten became a fad, because, everybody should be gluten-free and I'll try it. But then, they try gluten-free for a couple of weeks and don't get the results they're looking for, and then try, keto or high-fat, high-protein diet, or I should be paleo. And it's sort of this scattershot approach without getting the results that they're looking for, because they don't have the guidance and the direction and the support to help them see through a good care plan.
Right. Well, and that's the key to it. All of this is a really good care plan. And what impresses me so much is the level of research you guys do, and the fact that you have your finger on the pulse of things that, modern medicine really isn't bringing forefront, but you are. So I can't thank you enough for what you do.
Well, thank you.
And we appreciate you stopping by Business Connection and giving us just a little glimpse into what we need to be paying attention to with gluten in our diet, and best yet, who we need to go talk to when we're not feeling well, which is you guys. So thank you so much. We're going to be right back with more Business Connection. Stay tuned.